From 2010 to 2016, the show on History Channel became one of the most memorable restoration shows on television. Rick Dale and his family did more than fix old things, they shared their daily life. And that honesty made the show hard to ignore. But what happened later is still seen as reality television's strangest decisions ever. Rick Dale and his family were suddenly removed during Season 7, and soon after that, the show was cancelled. And it was not over. Years later, Rick Dale had to close his workshop, the same place that gave the show its heart and identity once. So the question remained for many years, why was Rick pushed out of a show built around his work, and what happened to Rick Dale and his family? The truth behind the situation is slowly becoming clearer, and it tells a different story than what viewers believed for years. To understand everything, we have to go back to where it all began. The Rick's Show. On October 25, 2010, History Channel aired the first episode of American Restoration. This time, Rick Dale was not visiting someone else's shop. The cameras were inside his own workplace, and almost immediately, the show found its audience. It was broadcast in many countries, watched by millions, and continued growing with each season. On the surface, it looked like another program about fixing old objects, but the idea itself was not new. Before American Restoration, similar shows already existed. There was Tank Overhaul, a technical program about restoring military tanks. There was Restoration on the BBC, where viewers voted to help save historic buildings. And there was American Chopper, which had already shown how a family business could create strong personalities and conflict on screen. So the basic concept was already there. What made American Restoration different was something simpler. It felt personal. Rick's restorations did not look like a television set. It looked like a real family shop working under pressure every day. Rick was the face of the business, but the show made it clear that the shop depended on the people around him. There was Kelly Dale, Rick's wife and business partner, managing payroll, budgets, deadlines, and sometimes frustrated customers. There was Tyler Dale, Rick's oldest son. He was skilled, but his father constantly pushed him to do more. Their relationship was not always smooth, and the tension between them often showed on camera. There was Brettley, Kelly's son, who began doing small tasks and slowly proved himself as part of the team. Viewers watched him grow into that role over time. There was Ron Dale, Rick's brother, who traveled to search for forgotten items that could be restored. And there was Allie Dale, helping behind the scenes. The show never tried to hide the pressure of the work. Arguments stayed in the episodes. Deadlines felt serious. Sometimes a restoration did not work out. Sometimes the numbers simply did not make sense. That honesty kept viewers watching. By the end of its 6th season, American Restoration had already reached 125 episodes. The show was still popular and still supported by its audience. Nothing suggested that something was about to change. And that is exactly why what happened next still confuses many people today. The unexpected idea, it began in 2009. That was the year History Channel introduced a new series called Pawn Stars. The idea was simple. A family pawn shop in Las Vegas where people walked in every day with strange, old, and sometimes valuable items. The owners studied each object, explained its history, and tried to reach a fair price. It felt natural and unscripted, and viewers quickly became interested. But there was one problem the shop faced again and again. Not every item was ready to sell. Some pieces were broken. Others were rusted or badly damaged. Sometimes their value depended on only one thing: whether they could be restored. That is when a familiar line began to appear on the show. Let's call our restoration guy. That person was Rick Dale. Rick was not an employee of the pawn shop, and he was not originally part of the cast. Long before television, he already owned Rick's Restorations in Las Vegas. For many years, he had repaired and rebuilt vintage objects that most people would throw away. Old Coca-Cola machines, gas pumps, motorcycles, and metal signs were some of the items he worked on. Over time, something interesting began to happen. Viewers were not only curious about the items entering the pawn shop, many of them also looked forward to seeing Rick appear on screen. His moments on the show became something people expected. He was not loud or dramatic. He simply understood his craft and spoke about it with confidence. The producers noticed this as well. Pawn Stars was already growing quickly, but Rick's work added another layer to the story. It showed the process behind the item. Viewers could see how something damaged slowly returned to life. Behind the scenes, a new idea began to form. If people were this interested in restoration during a short segment, what would happen if restoration itself became the entire program? That single question did more than shape the future of Pawn Stars. It eventually led to a new series that would become one of the most watched programs on the History Channel. Where is Rick Dale? Now, for many viewers across America, Rick Dale was the man who brought forgotten objects back to life. But after American Restoration ended, many people wondered where he went and what his life looked like without television. After the show finished in 2016, Rick and his family continued operating Rick's Restorations in Las Vegas for a few more years. The cameras were gone, but the work continued for a time. Eventually, however, each member of the family began moving in different directions. Rick's wife, Kelly Dale, focused on new business projects and also spent time working in real estate. Their son, Tyler Dale, kept working as a restorer on his own and occasionally shared updates about his personal builds and repairs. Kelly's son, Brettley started his own company in Las Vegas called Clean Works Blasting, offering dustless blasting services for different types of restoration work. Rick himself stepped away from the large, demanding restorations that television once required. Instead, he began focusing on smaller creative projects, consulting work, and his metal artistry. The physical workshop that fans once visited eventually closed in 2023. Several reasons led to that decision. Without the steady attention that television once brought, maintaining such a large space became difficult. Running a big shop also carried constant pressure and long hours. On top of that, the cost of labor, materials, and specialized equipment continued to rise. Without a television contract, keeping the operation profitable became harder each year. Even so, Rick Dale has remained financially stable. By 2026, his estimated net worth is around $2.5 million. Together with Kelly, he runs a custom laser cutting and embroidery business called My Best Font Forward. The company produces personalized metal art, gifts, and seasonal decorations. Rick also wrote a collector's guide titled Classic Soda Machines, which still brings in royalties. In addition, he works as a metal artist and consultant for private collectors who value his decades of experience. Today, he shares parts of his life online, posting updates about personal projects and time spent with his grandchildren. The pace is quieter now, but the creativity that defined his career remains part of his daily life. In many ways, the man who helped build one of the most loved programs on the History Channel continues to move forward, just in a different way than before. At the same time, the network that once built an entire series around him made the decision to move in another direction. The show changed, and eventually it disappeared altogether. For many viewers, that moment still feels difficult to understand. Looking back now, American Restoration remains a show that connected with people for many years. It was simple, honest television about craftsmanship, family, and the value of bringing old things back to life. And sometimes the end of a show raises as many questions as the story itself. What made it special for you? Was it the objects, the process, or the people working behind the tools? However someone remembers it, the work that happened inside that shop still lives on through the pieces that were restored and the viewers who watched it happen. If you enjoyed this deep dive, give the video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. We'll be uploading more stories like this in the coming week. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll see you next time.